Welcome to the Tell Me More podcast presented by Major League Success. And I am super excited to have this lady join me, Kim Mills. I know we've talked about it for a while, and today is the day. So thanks for coming on.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy this is happening.
Yeah, I know, we have some other things that we connect with on a fairly regular basis. And I know podcast and building YouTube. I mean, you've been working on it for the past year and something that I got away from, and now I want to bring it back around. And here we are. I'm excited to dive into the conversation with you, just to get to know you a little bit more, right? Share your story, with our audience. So I always, I always like to start with, just tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you with? Company, brokerage, and then we'll dive into little Kim growing up. What was that
Little
like?
Kim, Little Kim, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I'm Kim Mills, and I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. So I currently am with Cutler Real Estate. I have been with Cutler, I'm in my sixth year. Prior to that, I was on a team at HER. So I got licensed in 2010, started on a pretty high producing volume team, and then broke out on my own 6 years ago. It's crazy, but yeah.
Oh, awesome. And I've known you for 6 years, maybe
Yeah, I think so.
six
It's
years,
funny.
and
Yeah.
I joke all the time. Back then, I didn't take advantage of you being in the same office and really picking your brain and getting to learn more about you and just business in general and having those conversations. So over the last year, we've really reconnected, on Clubhouse, and been able to really watch your journey. And I've always watched the journey since when we were at Cutler,
Yeah.
in the same office. So I'm really excited to dive in. So I always want to start with Kim growing up, right? Because I believe, and as I interview other agents, and there's growing up and that family dynamic of whatever that situation environment was, I do believe has a huge impact on the every agent's real estate career, what good, bad, whatever it may be. And I'm always curious as far as how everyone's environment was, and how there are little pieces of that and how it relates to their business. So growing up, what was it like? Were you into sports? Where did you
Yeah.
live? What was family like?
Yeah. So growing up, I was born in Denver. My parents met at a job in Denver. And so I have one brother and we were both born out in Colorado. And then when I was a toddler, we moved to Dallas. So I was raised in a suburb in Dallas, Texas, which, I don't have the accent all the time, but I can totally throw it on if I need to. But
Maybe we'll get to that at some point
yeah,
into the
yeah, we
into
should,
the
we should. But
podcast.
yeah, but I mean, my childhood, when I look back on it, I feel really positive things in my memories. I mentioned I have one brother. He's a little older than I am. We're 15 months apart, so we're kind of in that like Irish twin stage. And it's really funny because we are polar opposites. I mean, we get along, but
Yeah.
we do not process anything the same, which is now as a parent of two, I'm seeing it happen with my children. And I'm like, God, it's just, you're innately wired certain ways.
Yeah.
But I definitely was like an athlete. I mean, I got into athletics when I was pretty young. And I tried all different kinds of sports. We joke, my mom, I guess the pediatrician told my mom I was going to be like 5'2". So I was like in gymnastics, and I had a lot of fear of like the tumbling. Once you had to start learning tumbling on a beam, I was like, I don't think I have this in me.
Yeah.
And so I am 5'8", so they were a little wrong on my height. But I got into swimming, and like I said, I did other sports until about like, I don't know, like high school, middle school, I guess, eighth grade. And it was just became a calendar thing. Like I just didn't have time. Although I feel like my mindset, even when I was young, like I had a coach tell me like, you can't do other sports. And I was like, well, now I'm going to go do another sport because I don't want you to tell me I can't do it.
Yeah.
So I think I had like that high achiever thing from a young age. But I was a competitive swimmer and swam through college. And it's a grind of a sport, as several sports are. But taking it to that level, I think, at a young age, I definitely learned I was doing it for myself. my parents were supportive, but they were not over involved, which
Sure.
I now look at as a complete gift, to be honest. It was like my thing, you know,
Yeah.
and my parents, as long as I was happy, they were great supporting it. But like if I was miserable, they weren't the ones that I felt like I had to keep doing it because my parents were so invested
Sure.
in it.
Sure.
So I think that afforded me the longevity in the sport. And at each stage, I definitely had, you know, some hurdles and all that stuff, but I learned so much just through that. That was a big part of my, I think, like formative years, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but my mom jokes with me that like I guess I was a late walker. Like I didn't walk right away, but she said you didn't, or actually it was crawling. I didn't really crawl, and she said all of a sudden you just started walking across the room. So I think I don't know. I mean, take it for what it is. I feel like I wanted to know I could get across the room walking, not crawling. So I waited until I thought I could do that.
Someone told you that you can't walk and you just got up and did it, right?
I'm like, I'm gonna do it. Yeah, and trust me, there is some there is like that sounds really great, but there are some major flaws in that too. We can get into that. But it's not all shiny when you operate like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I look back on childhood and I had great friends. I felt like I was connected with my parents, like we have a healthy relationship, and even my brother. I mean, we fought a little bit in high school, but like who doesn't, you know?
Right. Right.
I look back on it with a good memory for sure.
Yeah. I'm curious because you said that you kind of had that achievers mentality, right? If someone said you can't do it, you're going to go and do it, right?
Yeah.
Where did you get that from? Is it just a gift, or is it someone like, in your family, or in your immediate surroundings, that was a high performer?
Yeah.
Did you just
I
have it?
mean, I feel like a lot of it just came from myself. Now I say that with a lot of like humbleness because I've been surrounded by really awesome people,
Sure.
including my parents. My parents are both, they were really successful. They're both now retired, but they were very successful in their own worlds as well. So, I mean, there was probably a part of me that was watching that and maybe not even noticing it, but they were really good in their careers, and they were both. They met at McDonnell Douglas. They were in software development way back in the 70s when like nobody was in computer science, much less women. And
Yeah.
so I think I learned a lot by the dedication to their jobs. But I definitely remember talking to my dad once. You know, I'm like, how did you? And maybe I was in high school, and I was like, how did you know that this is like what you were going to do? And at that point he was like an independent consultant, so he would basically be in a destination for like 6 months and
Sure.
travel back and forth from Dallas like on the weekends. And he's like, you know, it was something I was good at, but he goes, it's not something, I'm not passionate about my job. And I'm like, what? Like, you know, I'm in this world at the time where it's like, you know, you have to find your passion and that's where your career sits. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God, my dad is telling me he doesn't have that even now. And ultimately he said to me, he was like, I'm good at it and it's a means to the end for me. And like
Yeah.
my dad at the time was like really into fly fishing. And so I feel like what I learned from my dad is like it's okay to work really hard in one area to find like play in another area,
Sure.
you know, and almost to strike balance with that. So
Yeah.
I don't know though, the high achieving thing, I don't know. I've never liked to be failing. And I mean, trust me, I know we talk a lot about like how failure is so important, but like
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I'm afraid of it, but I do not enjoy it. Like I
Yeah.
do not enjoy it.
Yeah. No, it's interesting, and our parents' generation, right? Like you went to work and you did it, and that's what it was, right? And for me, and I got lucky in the sense of when I got into real estate, I had a mentor that it was always life slash happiness first,
Mhm.
and then work second. So I've kind of been blessed in the sense of I've always just did something that I enjoyed doing. But growing up, it's parents were at jobs for 20, 30 years, and maybe they didn't like it, but they were good at it, but they didn't
Yeah.
really get that fulfillment from it. And I know we'll talk about real estate later on, and I'm sure you're like me and you found what you actually enjoy doing now. So
Yeah.
we'll get to that. But and I wanted to get into your competitive swimming because I know some of your story, and I don't want to overlook that piece of
Yeah,
it because
sure.
I'm sure that plays a huge role into adult life, right? Different careers and different jobs. Talk to me about the recruiting process. Talk to me about what you did, where you went
Yeah.
after school, during school.
Yeah, for sure. So my schedule, I mean, starting like, I mean, we had junior high, so I was like in a seventh, eighth, ninth, but I think by seventh grade, I was doing morning and afternoon practices. And most of that was water time, but sometimes I was like lifting in the morning. And I had to go to like a Gold's Gym with like these big bodybuilders. And I'm like, this tiny little seventh grader walking in, like, okay, I'll deadlift next to you. But it was fun. So the thing is, like in a sport like swimming, so I had some success like when I would say like a 12 and under, when you're in this like age group bracket. And it's obviously a time sport. So if you qualify at certain meets, like, I think more eyeballs are on you.
Sure.
And so by the time I got to like middle school, I was kind of slated in this like US swimming, like the eyeballs were on me for select camps and things like that. So before, I guess it was like late high school, well, before the recruiting process. So maybe like towards the end of junior high, I got to go out to the Olympic Training Center and, with girls in my age bracket, like top performers around the country. And we had like a week-long training session together, which was incredible. I mean, some of those girls were like, we were tight all through college and we all went to
Yeah.
different schools, but like it kind of took you from a feeling of like, you're this big fish in a small pond every day in your practice sometimes. But then I was like, oh, this is like the new pond. Like, this is, if I want to be in this pond, like, this is what it's going to look like,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is humbling because, it's like, you're like, you go from feeling like, oh, I'm really awesome at this to I'm
Yeah.
pretty average at an awesome level, right?
Yeah.
So that was kind of a milestone thing for me growing up. But like, I knew, I mean, my dad, I mean, this is going to sound hilarious, but I remember we had like the video recorders, like those huge camera things. And my dad,
Yeah.
literally like this, my dad would interview us and we had I guess he did it at like holiday times and he would ask us like, Kim, what's your short-term goal? What's your long-term goal? And I was like, it was like a normal thing that we talked about. And for
Right.
swimming, I think it was really normal because, we had seasons and you usually set like a goal for yourself and then, back it out. Like, how am I going to do that?
Right.
Which I think was just an awesome thing to learn at a young age. But I remember I was probably like in sixth or seventh grade and I said, my short-term goal was to like win events at our state championship. And I grew up in Texas, so it was a fast state for swimming. And then I said, I want to swim in college. And so I don't know. It's like you start saying it, you start thinking it. As I progressed, Olympics kind of like crept in. Like, is this possible? Could I make the U.S. Olympic team? And it definitely was something that I started going after. So I did go to Olympic trials. It fell in the sophomore year of my collegiate experience. By the time I got there, I was not going to be making the Olympics, but I can like laugh and share this now and feel very proud of the accomplishment. I think for a long time I kind of like fell into this hole of like being disappointed about the outcome and couldn't
Sure.
really see the achievement in it, and which is silly. But I think there is something to be said, like you do when you don't achieve something that you're going after, like there is a bit of a mourning period of that.
Yeah.
So I've moved through that and I'm good. But yeah, I did go to trials and two events, and I wasn't really sure if that was going to be the end of my swimming career. Candidly, it was a big pivotal moment for me. So I was halfway through college. I did not perform at NCAAs the way I wanted to or at trials. And I just thought, what am I doing? And
Sure.
it was one of those moments, like we all have these moments where it's like you're at a crossroad. And so I grew up in Dallas, but I went to Michigan for school. And so I had one friend from high school that was at U of M. And I was like, "Are you driving home to Dallas? Because I want to jump in your car." And he's like, "Yep." He's like, "I'm leaving on this date, whatever." And I think I didn't even say anything to him until we got to Nashville, which is like halfway, because I was just like really lost. I mean, I was just
Yeah.
kind of, trying to figure things out. Obviously, we talked and had some beers and like got a little bit of life back to the rest of our drive.
Yeah.
But ultimately, when I went home, I realized I needed to find the fun in the sport again. I think I was taking on maybe what other people wanted for me in the sport. Kim, you can make the Olympics, you can do this, like almost taking other people's goals for me and absorbing them myself. Yeah, it would have been amazing to swim on the US Olympic team. But I did have experience with the US team. I did
Yeah.
qualify for a team, going into college. And so it's not like that. It's not so finite. It's not that like end all be all. And so, but
Right.
I had some healing to do. I mean, I really had to regroup. I really had to kind of reset goals, and figure out what I wanted to do. And so I went back and I was training in Dallas, and I told my club coach that was like a dad to me. I was like, I can't train with you because I need to be with college kids. Like, I just can't be racing 14-year-olds when I come in here, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I went, SMU is like kind of in my
Mhm.
backyard. And those coaches have known me since I was little. And I went in there and just said, look, like, I don't even know if I want to do this. I just need to have fun. I need you guys to kind of like help me piece myself back together. And I said,
Yeah.
I'm not competing at nationals. I'm not doing any of those things. And they're like, that's cool. That's like, they're like, practices tomorrow at 4. We'll see you. I mean, they were just like, we don't care. Just show up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
day by day, I think I found like the joy in that sport again. And a big lesson to me was like, we talk about this in real estate. It's like, I think I was getting stuck in the end result and like if I'll be happy when I get this. And it's just like it's not how it works. It's just not how
Yeah.
it works. Um,
Yeah.
so I knew I needed to make adjustments when went back to school. In the last 2 years I had at Michigan were my favorite. I grew a lot. And I realized like my life was a bit out of whack. Like I was defining myself as a swimmer, which I never did. I'm Kim first and I'm a swimmer second. And so
Yeah.
like I just needed to find more of like an even balanced life on campus. So I got really involved in some other organizations, branched out of my swimming world. Some of my best friends are, athletes there, but like different teams. And so we had something in common, but not the day to day, like all the ins and outs of your team.
Sure. Practice and all of that.
Yeah. I mean, it's like anything. It's like when you're trying to, when you make connections with people, it's like they don't need to be exactly like you, but
Right.
coming at it with the same value and the same understanding, like it just immediately gives you this like tight bond. So anyway, so it was great. And then like so at the end of college for me, I was actually given an award that I had no idea was coming my way. And it was, I mean, I think that's kind of says it all. Like I probably cherish that award more than anything that I accomplished. And it's the Big Ten Medal of Honor, and they give one senior female and one senior male of all the athletes that award. And I got that, and I had to like speak to all the athletes, and I was like, what is happening? But I
That's so
remember,
awesome.
I mean, I thank you. It was based on like your academics and your athletics, and then also your service. And once I figured out that tripod for me, like when I went back my junior year, everything changed. Like it
Yeah.
just all started to click, and it was coming from such a true place that I think I finally was being me and not being like this athlete who I'm trying to be.
Sure.
So but I did talk I had to give a little speech, and I just said like, and it still rings true today. It's like we all have gifts, right? We all have gifts, and you just have to figure out how to be present enough to share them with the people around you. It's easy for us to all get like, whoop, this is
Yeah.
my world and this is what I'm doing. But I just think so much comes out of when you can like kind of open up a little bit and give that away.
Yeah. And go back to finding the fun in it, right?
Oh my God.
I
Absolutely.
think that was probably the biggest thing. And yeah, you had and I'm sure it's for every top performer, whether it's business, life, whatever it is, sports, you always want to achieve the highest peak, right? The Olympics would have probably been the highest peak for every athlete, right? And you got that taste of it though, right?
Yeah.
You know, even though the result wasn't there, you got the taste of it. And I'm always one that, I want to be in rooms and around people that are thinking bigger than me, that are
Yeah.
thinking differently than me, and that are doing way more than me. And I want to, yeah, I may never get there, but just getting the taste of being in those rooms
Yeah, for sure.
has a huge, and I'm sure that has a huge impact on your life, right? Like,
Totally.
like, hey, in the beginning growing up, I'm the person that you tell me I can't do it, I'm going to go do it. Well, now here's this event where you went and did it, but you didn't have the results, right? So now
Mhm.
probably moving forward, and we may get into it. I don't know your story, but I'm sure going through that and not having the results, some people would call it failing, right? Like in the book, I don't know if it was The Power of Moments or what we've read recently, but they talk about stretching, right? We have to
Mhm.
stretch ourselves to fail,
Yeah.
right? In order to get outside of our comfort zones. And you got outside of your comfort zone and you didn't have the results, but now in the future, looking back on it, now that you're healed and you're
Yeah.
able to talk about it freely, like I'm sure there's not much that comes your way that you're really going to dwell on it like you may have done then, but because you went through that experience, everything else on the other side will be better.
Yeah. I mean, it's for sure. It's like, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like life, like you can think that it's stepping stones, like you're going forward, but I
Yeah,
think a lot of times it's like these lily pads. Like it's not even like a forward jump; it's like a lateral side move, and you can learn from all of them. But I do fundamentally the the hardest moments, and I know this is like cliche, but I read all these business books about it. People who I'm sort of attracted to in terms of their business and
yeah,
what they're teaching us. It's like the gold is in all that adversity, and so to miss the lesson there is like the biggest mistake,
right.
I mean, that's like the biggest mistake. And so, I mean, this would be a whole other podcast, me talking about adversity, especially in my collegiate experience. But I will tell you, when I got to my first job, I worked for a huge ad agency in downtown Chicago, and when I got there, I walked in like I can handle this because I handled a lot of crap in college that these people have not gone through. Not to minimize what they've done, but like they
Sure.
haven't had that experience, and I'm gonna be okay. Like I'm gonna know how to handle it. I'm gonna know how to like get through tough things, and hopefully have fun with the people that I'm working with.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's interesting how I don't think any of it's accidental. I just think I some of my dearest friends from college are Olympians and gold medalists, and let me tell you, their life wasn't perfect either. It's
yeah,
like I think we sort of think it's going to be one thing, but I don't know. I
yeah,
cherish those years were pretty incredible. Yeah.
yeah. And I think I found I think it was a video on YouTube early on in my career, and it was Kobe Bryant doing an interview. And this may play into, after that event and then going back to your junior, senior year of finding the love for swimming again. But I talk to agents about this all the time too on a real estate. And I found this video of Kobe, and I'm going to butcher it, but essentially he said, the reason why there's more talented players in the NBA than me. There's people that can be all-time greats, but they only want to focus on the games. They don't want to focus on the practice. And what Kobe said is you have to fall in love with the process. And if you can fall in love with the process, the game is just the reward,
Yeah.
right? That's just like the cake at the end. Like to him, it wasn't even about the games. It was about shooting 1,000 free throws, going to the gym at 6 a.m. every single day. It's about the love of the process of doing those tedious things. And when I saw that video, like for me in real estate, it was like, man, I have to fall in love with the process of building real estate business, meaning the grind of reaching out to clients. For me, it was internet leads, right? It's, am I doing the things to attract people to me?
Yeah.
And if you don't love that, then you're not going to love the rest.
Well, I mean, I totally agree. I've seen that Kobe. I mean, yeah, R.I.P. He was a good one. Lost
Yeah.
too soon, but I it's funny. My college coach had this phrase. Well, he had two. He's like, "The hay is in the barn." He had like he had a Southern accent. I know we were in Michigan, but he has a Southern accent. And he was like, the hay is in the barn, ladies, the hay's in the barn. And we were like, what is he talking about? But basically, when we got to championship season, he's like, the work is done. Like,
Yeah.
so now, like, you need to chill out and you need to just go compete because the
Go
work is
do.
already done. Right.
Yeah.
But the other thing he would say to us all the time is he's like, girls, it's the process, not the product. It's the
Yeah.
process, not the product.
Yeah.
And I laugh because I feel like right now that is like a mantra that a lot of people are talking about. And it could not be more true to what I chose to do for my career. I mean, it's like a sport like swimming. It's a lot of delayed gratification, right? Like you're putting in all the hours, you're in this grind. It's like a morning workout, it's an afternoon workout, you're lifting after your afternoon workout, lather, rinse, repeat. Like you do it every day for 9 months, and then you go have your big meet and you hope you drop time, but you don't always drop time, and that's a long
Right.
time to wait for a result.
Yeah.
So I think you do have to find some sort of joy in that, or else you would not keep doing it, you know. And so, and I think it's a very individual sport, but I think it's also, and I'm back on deck now and I'm helping some high school girls. And so much of it is like rally around the girls around you. You know,
Yeah.
like some days you're going to feel on and you're going to feel incredible and you can take that leadership role in your lane or with your girls. But like
Yeah.
sometimes it's like you just need to make it through a practice and that's okay. Like, so I just tell them, I'm like, set an intention. Like, what, you know, maybe you just had a total crappy test and like you're really upset about it, like just get through this, you
Yeah.
know. So it never stops.
Yeah.
I've learned that that mantra never stops.
No, it never does. And it goes back to what I always say, like, having a coach is important, right? Whether it's
Mhm.
life, business, sports, whatever, is important. But having that peer to peer is relationship is also important, right? Leaning
Yeah,
on someone that's going through it the same that you are is important. And then I always say, be a coach to someone else, right? There's going to be times where, maybe one of your girls is feeling down and another girl comes and shows up and they're going to coach them for that moment or for that day.
yeah,
And, that's just so important. And, it's funny. That's why I always like going back and listening to everyone's stories before real estate, because there's so many things that have happened in your life that I'm sure play a huge impact,
oh
in your
yeah,
business,
oh my gosh. Like,
So
I mean, yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
no, no.
You were asking about the recruiting process too, and it's funny. I'm sorry, I'm closing my emails. I probably should have done that before. I think. Um, so you know, the recruiting process too. I mean, that was an interesting journey, and like I said, my parents were instrumental probably in the longevity of me doing a sport for myself. Like I
Yeah.
never felt like I was doing it for them. But holy cow, like we had no idea. We had zero idea what was going on, and now it's even more intense and starts earlier and all those things. But yeah, I was looking at I mean, I was allowed 5 recruiting trips, and so the ones I took, I went to Stanford, Texas, Auburn, Arizona, and Michigan. Um, and it's funny, I chose like the coldest grayest place,
Uh,
and you know, walking to the pool at 5:30 in the morning was probably would have been a lot better in Arizona, but that's okay. But you know, it was really interesting at a young age to you know, have to navigate somebody telling you maybe what they just want you to hear. You know,
yeah.
I mean, you're 17 and they're, we want you, and it's very, you know, you get kind of sucked into that. But I remember having a conversation with one of my coaches who he swam at Texas and now he's actually the coach at Yale. And he just said, he was like, he goes, stop worrying so much about it. You're just going to figure out which color looks the best on you. And that's where you're going to go. I'm like, you went to Texas. Like you thought burnt orange was the best color. But he was joking, but he was like, you just need to take that moment and just kind of think like, where did you see yourself? Like, you
Yeah.
know, like going to class and, you know, outside of this like whole, you know, dog and pony show that they're giving you, like, where do you feel like yourself? And so
Yeah.
it was, you know, a lot of soul searching. And I think we have to do that at a lot of different moments in our lives. But that one, I was like, oh my God. And then having to tell people no. I mean, it's like multiple offers. It's like I got to tell one person no, I had to tell 4 people no.
Yeah.
It was great though. Swimming's a small world, and you know, you had support even when you weren't going to their school. But yeah, learned a
So
lot.
You thought Maize and Blue looked the best, huh?
I know. I mean, gosh, our friends in Columbus are going to be like, they're not going to listen to anymore. They just turned us off.
It just turned it off, exactly. So you graduate college, you go to Chicago, right? You're doing, you said ad agencies type stuff, right?
Yep. Yep.
Um, Kind of lead me up from Chicago to getting into real estate.
Yeah. So, um, to describe the ad world in, a nutshell, my responsibility was, like the middle of the wheel, and then I had all these spokes. So it might be like a creative director or a strategist or producer or whatever. They were kind of all, their info fed into me, and then I had to manage the client,
Sure.
which was super. It was awesome. I mean, the pace was crazy. It was chaotic. And they were big brands we were working on. I mean, my first client was General Motors. So I was like in Detroit every week. And that was just crazy. I mean, that whole world of GM and how they've transformed. I mean, I was doing that in the late 90s when they still had huge fleets of cars.
Yeah.
Um, the brand I worked on doesn't even exist anymore, which was really interesting. But when you do a deep dive like that, not only into just like the branding, it's like you have to understand their whole business.
Yeah.
So really a cool way to understand what's going on in a company, and then you have to kind of help um, bring, what does their identity mean to any consumer. So I did that, and I also worked on Hallmark, which the card business. I mean, now people don't probably even write it. Well, we are. We're going to bring
Yeah.
the card business
We're
back.
bringing it back.
Yeah, but Hallmark was so. I mean, their commercials used to just be like. They were famous for making people cry, so that was an emotional one on the other end of the spectrum. But
Kim's just crying every day as she's working.
day, every day. It was cool. We did an Olympic sponsorship with Hallmark. And so I was out at the Utah when the Olympics 2002, when they were in Salt Lake. I was there for 6 weeks. It was the most incredible job experience I've probably had. It was unbelievable from start to end. Learned so much, met so many amazing people. Oh my gosh. I mean, that's a
That's
whole,
awesome.
whole other thing. But so getting to Columbus, I mean, I moved here, and I started at another ad agency here, and it was great, but I was not really like. I mean, I liked the people that were around me, but the day to day, I was not in love with. And
Yeah.
so when I moved to Columbus, I gave it a year, and I was moving because there was a guy I was dating, and I was like, whatever, let's just see where this goes, and that ended abruptly, which is funny because I obviously met my husband, and I'm still here.
Yeah.
Um, but the notion of like the actual business of what I was doing, I just wasn't as into. Like I missed that consumer facing discussion. Like how are consumers, what are they thinking? Like what are their purchase decisions? Like all of this. I mean, that's what I love that stuff.
Yeah.
So I had a friend stop me in the ad agency at the time, and she literally had a pink sheet of paper, and she's like, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, I'm getting fired. I'm getting fired right now. Like a pink slip for real. And she was like, no, this is the name of a headhunter. And they called me, and they're looking for someone. I think you need to call them. And so at the time, I was actually like kind of one foot out the door in Columbus. I was talking with another agency in Dallas. I was talking with Northwestern about maybe coaching. I was all over the place. But fundamentally in my core, I was like, I'm not sure I have it in me to like go start in another city again. So I take this lunch meeting, and it was a developer who was starting a downtown residential building. And this is in 2003. Nobody's living downtown yet. No one. And so I was like, okay, like this is interesting. So in the lunch interview, I said, if you want a real estate agent, I'm not your girl. I don't want to be a real estate agent. And he was like, tink. And that's got me the job. Like, no joke, it got me the job because he, at the time, I think wanted somebody totally focused on his project.
Yeah.
And so it was the Buggy Works building. Now it's next to, the amazing Huntington Park. And now it's anchored by lower.com. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like, it's amazing down there. But when I started selling that, I mean, you had to, like, you would come up, a fire escape to get up to my office. There was like the lights didn't continue on. Like it was not the pretty side of Nationwide at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but he wanted somebody who could like share his vision and get people to understand his vision. And it was awesome. So that was my entry into real estate. And Kyle Katz was a developer, and I mean, we were like four people in this office pulling off this project, and he brought me into the fold. I mean, I went to the Metropolitan Club lunches with him, which CMC is an awesome organization in Columbus. Like you just meet a lot of leaders, and each month it was like the meeting was about something different. But I started to learn how things in Columbus happen. Like maybe they happen slow, maybe they happen fast, but I started to understand how that happens, and I
Yeah.
was really interested in that. Um, so at the end of that project, I kind of was more, I would say, like in construction management, and I didn't love that side so much. I was like sitting in sub meetings, calling out mistakes. Like that
Yeah.
was not my bread and butter for sure. So I went back into advertising for a little bit. Then another developer contacted me for a project they wanted to do in the short north, and I wasn't even looking. I was totally happy in my job, and it was actually somebody who bought at Buggy Works. Had a meeting with these guys that were starting this project and said, well, if you need somebody to sell it, you have to talk to Kim. And so they found me, and I had a lunch with them and said, like, if you want me, this is how I would want it to work. And they were like, okay. And I said, okay, I have to quit. So that was spring of '08. So, everything's feeling great.
Exciting
Spring of
times
'08.
then.
Oh my God, by fall of '08, it was a very different story.
Yeah.
So, but, I think
Were
that,
you licensed
yeah,
at that point? Or when did you get
no.
your no, okay, this is still
So,
before even okay.
yeah. So I think because I was working directly for the developer, I
Yeah.
did not have to be licensed. I was just a sales associate.
Right. Right.
So, I mean, they hung on to me until 2010, and then I was just straight overhead. I was just waiting for that conversation. So I went to Hondros and got it done in a month. I was like, this is what I want to do. I think this is what I should be doing. I had my first child at the time. And so I just couldn't quite see myself, as much as I loved the environment of the ad agency world. I was a bit of an addict to it.
Yeah.
I was like a complete workaholic and wanted to climb the ladder again. I wanted to not crawl across the room, but like run across the room.
Mhm.
And that was fine. But now I'm a mom, and like that's not going to work. And getting on a flight at the last minute to go meet with clients and that kind of pace, I was like, just, I think that chapter was just done at the
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I signed on with Tech and Rough. I mean, I appreciate them so much. I met them way back in my Buggy Works days. They would bring clients in, and I would, I feel like we got to know each other from just me doing my pitches to their clients.
Yeah.
But it was a great way into real estate. I mean, I got to be a sponge with people who they're leaders in this industry, and
Mhm.
big volume. And I like to go into the office and just like absorb,
Yeah.
if I wasn't busy, but that was kind of my way in.
So getting licensed, you said that was 2010, right?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah,
so 2010, you got a taste of some sales, for the developer. You got some taste of the back end side of actually doing the development.
yeah,
Um, when you got in, you went full 100% commission based. I'm
yeah,
always curious. Did you have more doubters, more supporters? I'm assuming someone like yourself, who was a high achiever, in all aspects of life, right? You probably had a lot of supporters, knowing that you're going to perform. But I'm always curious, did you have people like eh, talking, saying, "Hey, like, what are you doing? Like, you're going
yeah. I
100%
mean,
commission. Like, what's going on?"
probably they probably just weren't saying it to me. Just kidding. Uh,
Most of the time, that's how it goes.
yeah, yeah, which I've learned to just doesn't matter. That voice doesn't matter. But
Or was it someone saying that you can't sell real estate, and you're just like, "Oh, I'm gonna go show you."
yeah, let me show you. Let me show you. It's funny. My husband was the one that was like, "You should have done this like 5 years ago." We
Oh,
talked
wow.
about it a few times. When I was in between the development jobs, he was very encouraging. Just like,
Yeah.
you would be so good at this. So I think having that like made me not really have that much doubt. It was really weird leaving a very nice, solid, stable paycheck twice a month. Like that was
Yeah.
odd to not have. But I think honestly, it keeps me motivated in a weird way. It's like we know in this business, like there is no guarantee, like what your next deal is, and so
Yeah.
I think it was a transition for sure. Just in how we were paid. but my first year was like, I mean, 2010, I was talking with you earlier, it's like those conversations in helping sellers, I mean, it was like the net selling sheet. I'm like, okay, so this means if we're lucky enough to get this number, you're going to bring 25,000 to the table. I
Yep.
mean, on repeat, like those are those conversations. So it's funny how different it was, but so much of like what I think just how I'm wired and then like what I loved about advertising has been such a good transition for real estate. So, to answer your question though about like the doubters, I mean, maybe, I'm sure I had people like, she's going to be terrible at that.
Right.
But I also had such great networks of these different companies that I worked at. And I was like, I just have to keep in touch with those people, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what it
Yeah.
is. But it's a bit like swimming, I think. It's like there's a delayed gratification in this job. And I think knowing that you're not guaranteed a check twice a month, it's hard. It's a big difference
Yeah.
coming from like more of a corporate background.
Yeah. So how did you get connected with VTech and Rough? I mean, most people get into real estate and it's I want more time. I want, some freedom. I want, to get away from someone telling me what to do.
Mhm.
Right. And they get into it to be on their own and solo. Was it just by luck? Did someone say, guide you and say, hey, you probably need to be on a team? Was it your past experience at works and being on teams?
Yeah.
What
Well,
what what helped you make that decision? And then did you have any initial struggles, or did you just kind of hit the ground running and have that success out of the gate?
yeah. So the first part of the question, so a good friend of mine, Amy Conley, she's an agent actually at
Yeah,
Cutler. She was our agent. I mean, and she was a friend that, we kind of had a similar group of acquaintances, not that we shared, the same
sure.
network, but she, I think at the time was with HER. Not that it mattered, but I was like, just talking to her and she knew we were living downtown at the time and I knew we were going to get to the suburbs and she's like the way the market was, I mean, again, it's like people were trying to keep the lights on in those
Yeah,
days. And I know if you weren't in it, like it sounds like I'm joking, but it was terrible.
right,
And so
right.
Amy was like, I would love to bring you on, but I don't even know what I would give you, And I was like, that's okay, that's okay. So she was one to say like you should call Marilyn and Jeff. And then I think at the same time someone else said that because they reached out to me and I was just like, okay, so I had a meeting with them and that was it. I mean, I didn't like interview at all.
Yeah,
I just said, I remembered them from back in, my first development project and I of course knew who they were, and I was like, to be a part of that would be incredible. And it was great. I mean, I was there like 6.5 years and I learned so much. I mean, it felt like the way that they operated, it felt like a family, I mean,
mhm,
I think my first year though, let's be honest, my first year, I was not like any sort of rising star. I was just trying to figure it out, hoping I mean, I honestly was like, if I could make my base salary for my first advertising job, I was going to be really happy because I was like, I know that this is going to be like, one of those like one step back, two step forward
right,
kind of moments.
right.
And,
Yeah,
with the support that my husband was giving me and morally, but also financially, I mean, it really helped. So I knew we were going to be okay if I didn't make that same amount, but the encouragement of like, you can go do this, was instrumental. And then kind of from there, it was weird because I also think like 2011, Columbus started to kind of pick up a little bit. And then every year I was just one of their, top performing producers, which was great. I mean, it was just, I think what I loved was that environment felt like my college team. Like I was there with a bunch of people who were serious about it, who loved to have fun, but like we got our work done,
high performers too.
high performers. Right.
Getting into that other pond.
Yeah, totally. So, right. And so then I did get to a point again, I think we all have these moments in our life. For me, I think it was just having a milestone birthday. And I was like, if I don't do this now, I don't think I'm ever going to do it. But I was really craving my own brand. I was craving
Mhm,
my name on my work. And at the time, the way that the team was structured, we were sort of invisible in a way.
Sure.
And I didn't really care at all at first. But then I really had to have that like gut check. I'm like, I think I do care. And I think it's okay to say that. I was like, I'm working really hard and I want to create a name for myself.
Yep.
Um, so it was scary that first year. I'm like, again, like feeling like when I was joining their team. But Marilyn sent me the nicest note like 2 weeks after I was sitting in that office in UA where you were too. And I hung that note card on my cube the whole time we had that office. It was just one of those things that like, and I believe this, like, you know, I always want to leave on good terms. And it was more, I was like, I just had outgrown the nest, right? It wasn't like
Yeah.
any sort of sour parting by any means. But, you know, she was just like, you're going to do great. Like, it was just sort of like, you know, like an older sister saying, like, you got to go do this. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
You know? So
Yeah.
I always remember that because I think you always have people in your life that you need to write that note for too. And so it was very impactful. I'm sure she doesn't even know that. It did mean a lot.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. I mean, like 2010, I got in 2011, but
Mhm.
I really didn't start selling until I think my license was technically August of 2011. So really 2012. And, it was a different time. It was a different, even then, I mean, we're still coming out of it.
Yeah.
And I tell agents today that are getting licensed and, they're like, this market's insane. And, I'm running around and I'm doing all the showings. I'm like, I think we worked just as hard in this market as we did in the down markets, right? It's just we did 30 showings and didn't write any offers.
Yeah.
At least you're
Yeah.
doing a showing and writing an offer. You just might
Totally.
be writing 30 offers
That's
instead of
right.
one.
Like our time spent differently.
Yeah, but it's one of those things like, I look back and I feel like I was blessed to come in at the tail end of it. I'm blessed that I didn't have to figure out how to get through it, in 08, 09, in
Yeah.
2010. But I'm also blessed that, we came in at that time to where it was on the way out and and we are ahead of some agents that are getting in now in the sense of what do foreclosures look like? What does short sales look like?
Right.
What is that conversation? How do you have it, that difficult conversation of saying, hey, if we don't get this number, you got to bring 25 grand, or we have to think about going a short sale route,
Yeah.
and what's the impact of that with a homeowner, right? Hey, this means you won't be able to buy for 3 years, and I got a place for you to rent, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And I think it's, for us, it's just, we have some of those tools and things in our back pocket that, and for me too, and I talk about it now, always being willing to pivot business, right? Like,
Absolutely. Holy cow. I mean,
you
like
know,
pandemic, like, I mean,
yeah,
that who knew? I mean, who knew what was about to happen, especially
yeah,
Columbus? I, I mean, those moments I was asked, I had to do a video for our brokerage and it kind of brought me back to that like 2020. You know, the spring of 2020 where we're all just sitting there like, what are we even going to do? And the
yeah,
fact that one, we were deemed essential is by no accident.
yeah,
I mean, Columbus Realtors, CorePack, all that. Like, it is not an accident that we were able to do this.
right,
But how crazy, that was my best year on paper. And
yeah,
I was like, what is happening here? You know, but clearly people were spending a lot of time in their dwellings and they weren't happy.
yeah,
So things needed to change. But
yeah,
I just think part of what I really like about real estate, even when it's those unknown moments like what we're talking about, like we're totally out of control of them, the economy is driving them. It's what keeps us on our toes. It's what you have to stay educated. You have to stay, you know, curious and like finding out like big picture, like what are the trends? What's happening? You know, I mean, my husband watches Squawk Box in the morning, and I used to be like, I'm not watching this, and now I'm like, who's on Squawk Box today? Because it does help. I mean, it's trends that, you know, we need to follow those things to help our clients understand, you know, what might be on the horizon. Not that
yeah,
no one has that crystal ball, obviously, but yeah, somebody said to me, they were like, oh yeah, you were like running into the fire when people were running out. And I'm like, yeah, it's all I know. Like that's when I jumped in. My real estate classes were totally full, so I wasn't the only one doing it.
yeah,
Um, but it's so weird how now I really can't picture myself doing something else. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know. It's a fun, I think We talk about moments, and the reality is somebody is trusting us with like a huge part of their life, and they might only do it a few times in their lifetime.
Hmm.
So, I try to not lose sight of that when we get, mired down into the details that are frustrating on a particular deal or whatever. But it's a big opportunity for us to help somebody at some sort of critical moment in their life, and I just
Yeah.
try not to forget that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, it's so important. I think, it's just human nature. Sometimes we lose that sense of it, but it's good to have, resets, right? Hey, let's
totally.
let's let's refocus on some of the stuff and what's really important to our clients. So, no,
Yeah.
that's awesome. So I want to kind of fast forward, look into
Okay.
the future for you.
Okay.
Um, what's something that you want to accomplish over the next 12 months? Personal, business, doesn't matter to me. Do you have any year goal?
Hmm. I mean, yes, I don't know if I like have them so succinct, but I mean, business wise, I always try to do a little bit more than I did the year before. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. This year, I'm trying to have a few more transactions. Last year, I was really fortunate that I had a higher price point on many of my deals. So
Mhm.
I had a large volume, but not quite as many transactions. So I don't know, the transactional goal is usually more of what I look at, not the
Yeah.
dollar amount.
Same. Same.
And so I just really want to, I don't know. I've always said I wanted to hit 50 transactions or 20 million. I don't know if I care so much that it's 50. I'd be fine if it was 40, but just somewhere in that range. Um, and then, well, personal, I don't know. I'm really kind of stretching myself with my own podcast. So I'm trying to just stay consistent with that. But I just, I look at, so I have two kids and they're not getting any younger. So I'm hoping this summer, if I play the front half of this year right, I hope this summer I can, really be present with them because that's the
Yeah.
time that I have with them, is the
Yeah.
summer. And I've got one kid who's, well, both of them are going to be doing golf, but I think I'm going to have to put my caddy
And you might, and yeah, I was gonna say you might become a professional caddy, right? Like
professional caddy. Yeah.
you can get some
Um,
practice.
yeah, but I mean, let's be real. I mean, I enjoy the time when I'm not working, and I want to have that
Yeah.
time too. I think be it it's like just going on vacation and being with my friends or family, or
Yeah.
just doing another pillar of things. It could be service, could be working out, tennis, whatever. Those pieces kind of keep me all in balance.
Yeah.
Harmony. I know there's not really balance, but
Wow.
harmony.
I
Yeah.
think this is the moment when I tell you that you won't hit 50 deals. So now you have to go and prove me wrong.
I know. I don't know. It's really funny though because well, maybe. I mean, I just feel like, I mean, every year my husband, like, when it comes to like November and December, and I'm really kind of putting all of that stuff on paper, he's always like, "You always say every year it's going to be so hard to do it again," and I'm like, "But it is. Like, there's no given, you
Yeah.
know." And so, I think my thing this year is doing it. Having that goal, having that number, like just like in swimming, it's that time,
Yeah.
but not focusing on that number every step of the way. It's
Right.
like those little things that we're talking about. It's the consistency, it's the showing up, being present when you're there,
Yeah.
doing that every day. I do believe it will help my number be higher.
Trust. Yeah. I mean, loving the process is one
Yeah.
one component of it, but then you have to trust the process.
Yes, that's right.
And that's the hardest part, right? Because
Yeah.
like you mentioned, delayed gratification, that is our career, right? That is our business. It's I'm going to do this activity, or I'm going to do this event, or I'm going to do this handwritten note card, and I don't even know what the outcome's going to be. I hope that it's going to turn into business down the road, but I
Yeah.
don't know. But then I have to show up and do it again. And I have to show
Right.
up and do it again, and then again and again. So, and I think
Well,
too, I think it's doing it your way too, right? And
totally. Well, that's the thing is like last year, I did try to make some, commitments to relationships and not truly not worrying so much about the transaction,
yeah,
and just growing those relationships. And in that way, you're growing your sphere organically in the way that feels comfortable for me.
yeah,
That has started to end up in business for me. But fundamentally, it is not why I'm doing it. Like, it's not what I get
Right.
joy out of. I mean, I think I've shared with you before, like, I'm not a big resolution person, but I do like the word, like a word to focus on for an intention for the year. And
Yeah.
last year, it was purpose for me because I just felt like whatever I was doing, I wanted that to be for a reason, and it did help me. I think filter things out that maybe were distractions and then also remind like, okay, this is actually something you need to do. So make that a priority. It really helped me. And this year for me, it's like it's impact. I feel like impact and fulfillment to me are sort of like not interchangeable, but like with
Sure.
impact, I do feel like I gain fulfillment. And so I'm trying to do that with whoever I'm around. And if that results eventually in a real estate sale, that's awesome. If it doesn't, that's okay. Like that's not really
Yeah.
the place where it's coming from. And so I think the more that I push myself into those environments to meet new people, to foster those new relationships, to empower people around me, to motivate people around me, to kind of celebrate their business and their journey, I get inspired by that. I get inspired by other people and their journeys. So
Yeah.
that's the space I'm in for 22.
It's there's a book called The Power of Consistency. I forget the author's name, but he talks about, you can't do the right things consistently and get the wrong results.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of time, right? Like building relationships, and that is. I was talking to Ryan Moody the other day, and he's like, my first goal with anyone I meet is to become friends. And if real estate happens, then real estate happens. And he means that when he meets with a total stranger at a bar or a restaurant or on the street or whatever. It's
Yeah.
like, let me interact, let me engage, and let's build a relationship, a friendship.
Yeah.
And at some point, real estate may come from it. And if it never does, it never does. But now I have a new friend or a new
Absolutely.
contact or a new relationship that I can continue to build on. So
Yeah.
no, that's awesome. So now I even want to look a little further. Okay,
Okay.
5 years. What goal? What do you want to accomplish in the next 5 years?
5 years. This is gonna be really funny when my husband hopefully watches this. So, when I first met him, it was because at the time, this ad agency, one of my friends asked me to be on a video that they played at a company meeting. I didn't know who my husband was at the time. And they said, "What do you wanna do in 5 years?" And I'm like, "Write a book." So, I haven't written that book yet, but maybe
Do
there's
you know
some
what it
things.
is?
Not yet, but I feel like if I take the time to be better at journaling, I think there are nuggets that I see. To me, it's a bit, well, I think where when I think about if I'm going to write something or research something, I think it's what we've just talked about, the parallels of my life as a young athlete, as a girl, walking in confidence and knowing who I am. That was a gift that like a lot of people don't have, but for sure a lot of girls lose that at a really young age. And so there's this interesting thing happening in my brain all the time because I really wanted to get back into coaching. So I'm seeing these high school girls and what's happening with them and what a cool moment of their life to be sharing with them because like they just had senior day and they're like saying what they're going to go study and I'm like these girls are amazing. I mean they're awesome athletes but like wow. I mean
Yeah.
we'll be in good hands I think. But so there's that piece and then there's the business side. It's like what we're talking about like how to be a good performer, how to go get your goals. So like there's some sort of mashup there maybe.
I think I got the title for you.
You do?
Walking in Confidence.
I
I don't
don't
know if it's already taken or not,
It might be. We'll look it up. I'll look it up.
but we'll add another word or two in there
Yeah,
for you.
I
But
just think the
that's
opportunity.
awesome.
Yeah, the
I think
opportunity for kids like that leadership and that confidence. I mean, look, I have two kids that are walking their tween ages very differently, and when you see it, it's like you almost don't know. Like they don't necessarily have tools and curriculum to teach this. Not that they can't, but I feel like there's an opportunity there somewhere.
not just kids, adults.
Yeah,
Like one of the things, like for me, I'm just cocky in the sense that because now I have experience in real estate. If it's something else like outside, like yeah, we all need that boost of confidence, right? And a lot of that
Yeah.
comes down to just making sure you're doing the actions and doing it consistently to then build your belief system. And if you guys don't know the Success Cycle by Tony Robbins, go and YouTube that. But yeah, I love that. Walking in confidence.
Well, and look, I mean, the thing that, I feel like it goes back to what we've been talking about. It isn't the result. It's not the college scholarship. It's not the first place medal. It isn't that. At the time, I think, and especially now, I feel like that's what kids think it's all about.
Right.
The world is this instant gratification.
Yeah.
And the the sad side of that is there's a lot of disappointment and there's a lot of depression and there's a lot of unhappiness because they're chasing something that they're never actually going to get. And
Yeah.
so it's trying to change that language because they're missing the journey that's right in front of them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yep. Yep, and everything that comes with it. So, Kim, we're up against some time here. I
Yeah.
appreciate your time of coming and sharing your story and just pouring into to the audience. But I always ask this last and final question: if you could give our audience one piece of advice that you wish you had, whether it was starting in real estate or now, it doesn't really matter to me. What would that be?
Um, well, okay, the first thing that comes to mind, I mean, there's a lot, but the first thing that comes to mind, I was recently sitting with someone and she shared with me a phrase that just has stayed with me. And it's that we should sit in our truth and not the truth of others.
Mm,
And I feel like, especially in real estate, there are so many ways to do this job. I
yeah,
mean, there's so many ways to do it, there's so many ways to be successful. But I think where I have started to really feel happiness and fulfillment and success is doing it the way that feels really true to me. And it doesn't like I want to celebrate others' successes as well
yeah,
because that's important and we can all play in the sandbox together.
yeah,
But I think it's important to look inward and start there and say, what is it about me and this business? And how can I shine? And I think you start there and just again believe in that and just then plant the seeds every day. So
yeah. No, that's awesome.
yeah,
Kim, if anyone wanted to connect with you, maybe they love your story, they resonate with your story, they want to pick your brain, whether that's buying real estate, selling real estate, or even another real estate agent that wants to connect with you. I know anyone that's watching this, you can see at the bottom, you can go to her Instagram handle. What is the best way for someone to reach out to you and to connect?
yeah, I would say I definitely am probably on Instagram the most of the social media platforms. I'm on LinkedIn too, but if you shoot me a DM through Instagram, I'll respond back, and I'm always open to a coffee or a lunch or a quick call. Where I didn't get to where I am by myself, so I get it, and I think it's important to be able to. I learn from all these conversations, so I'd welcome a chat.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. And her Instagram handle is at Kim Mills Group. So go to Instagram and make sure you guys send her a message.
Yeah.
I know I've selfishly have loved learning from you and reconnecting with you over the last about a year now, right? A
Yeah,
year
it's
now
been
with
great.
what we've been doing with Clubhouse and just bringing real estate professionals together. So I really appreciate your time today. And if there's anything I can do for you in the future, always give me a ring.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Appreciate everything you're doing for all of us in this industry, and thanks for letting me share. This was fun.
No, thanks for coming on. Thanks for
Yeah,
coming on.
awesome. Thanks, John.